we're back with another roundtable discussion for the month of July. I am loving these as we are diving into some really great conversations and just watching the news and hearing people talk. There's been a lot of conversations about unity. And what does that mean? And what does that look like for you? And honestly, unity is such a huge conversation. I don't know where today's roundtable is going to go, but we're going to have fun with it. So I just want to welcome Care Baldwin, Johnny Rocket to today's roundtable discussion, guys. How's it going?
Awesome.
It's good. It was very good.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad. So today we're diving into that conversation about unity. I'm kind of curious to know, when you hear that word, unity, what are some of the things that come to your mind?
Johnny?
Mm-hmm. No, I was looking at you. I'm like, okay, kick it off. Here we go. I'm ready to follow whatever you're going to say.
I don't know. I've been struggling with this one too lately because I feel like, in my mind, you can almost divide unity into categories. Like, there's church unity, there's, like political unity, there's, just unity in your own heart. And like, whether you're wrestling with things and finding kind of completeness and wholeness in some of the things that you're wrestling with. And so I think it's hard to answer that question. I don't know. I think I often one of the things I do as a volunteer is worship leader at our church. And I think a lot of times I just come back to church unity, and not just within the church. And we may have had this discussion in the past, but it's actually, unity among churches and among the church community. And I think that's something that, we've heard this a billion times, but Jesus didn't decide on different denominations. So why is there already even just disunity among denominations? Plus, with right now, with what we're going through, there's disagreement and disunity in how to approach, vaccines and masks and all those issues too. So I think within the church and the Christian community, unity is something that I really desire to see more of. And I feel like there's a lot of different categories and areas where maybe we're not seeing it as much as we should.
Mm-hmm. Johnny?
I love the idea and the concept of unity. And the thing that we've found as of late, though, is that we can find the group that believes in what we believe. We can make social media things. And, if this person doesn't believe, well, guess what? I'm now going to mute them. And I'm only going to be listening to the people that agree with what I have to say. So in some ways, the unity that we maybe want is not real unity, because we're just trying to find like-minded people who believe in what we believe and do as we do. And it's not necessarily that we're growing anymore. We're essentially just putting ourselves in some sort of unified box.
But is it bad to create your own unity? Is it, because I think everybody wants to belong. I think, is it wrong to do that? Obviously, if you're excluding people, that's another thing. But just in terms of what you're saying, picking and choosing, creating your own unity, I don't know, what would be the negative repercussions of that?
Okay, well, let's put it this way. If you want to reach unbelievers, you would go to where unbelievers are. I'm not going to go to church to find unbelievers, because most likely in my church, there's not necessarily those who are non-believers. So I would probably go to a bar. I would go and I'd hang out with prostitutes. I would go hang out with those who are drug dealers. And I would try to find people. And I mean, maybe it's people who think differently than I do. But if we put ourselves in a specific box, in a specific place, it's not really us finding, I guess it's finding unity for a select group, but it's not necessarily us expanding and doing what we should be doing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sorry, Holly, I'm sure you have something you want to jump in and say, but just to keep going with this, because I like what you said, Johnny, I think we have to be thinking outside of ourselves in order to see the impact and the effects of true unity. I mean, we obviously want to see global unity, and we would never see something so beyond us if we weren't thinking beyond us, right?
Yeah. That's good.
No, I think that just from my perspective of unity, it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily be like-minded, but you have to be able to respect and even disagree with some civility. As I think if you create that little, microcosm of everybody agreeing with you, you might lose out on the opportunity to have your viewpoints stretched a little bit or learn from a different perspective, because everybody has a different set of experiences that they bring to the table, a different set of worldview based on their own growing up experiences or the school they went to, the culture they were raised in. And I think when we find unity, it's being able to appreciate their perspective. You don't have to agree, but being able to at least be civil and love the person for the person, because we're not always going to agree, even within the same church. It's just, we're human. We have our own perspective on things. And for me, I think that's what unity is, being able to go outside of what I feel is the truth and being able to have that unity with somebody else and maybe even learn something from a different perspective and hopefully all grow together, but not always agreeing.
Yeah, and also the whole being offended thing too, because I think that we have to, whatever you believe in might not necessarily be what I believe in, but I have to respect what you believe in. And there's a lot of times that you tell me something, I'll be like, oh, that's stupid. I mean, I can't, but it really just, it cuts that conversation off real quick. And we just got to come to it with an open mind and an open heart, knowing that not everybody believes what you believe. Not everybody thinks as you think. And even that's a part of unity then, is that, listen, we can, and I think it's the buzzword of 2020 or 2021, we can agree to disagree, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah. And I love it. You use the word respect. And I think that's a great way to say it. Like, you can't have unity and disagreement without respect.
Yeah. Well, how do you get to that point then? Let's kind of look at unity, respecting other people. But is there a point where the pursuit of unity can maybe become exclusive instead of what I think a lot of people are hoping for, which would be being inclusive?
Yeah, I think it touches on what we were saying already, where like we can strive for unity, but we may actually risk just picking and choosing and, uniting with like-minded people. And I think we've, in an organization, for example, you work hard at creating a culture. You're young, you're fun, you're hip, you're current. And like, by being that as a culture, somebody might not want your product because they don't relate to it, or somebody might be coming in to be hired or volunteer or whatever, and they're feeling like, I don't feel like I fit into this at all. So you might be like, hey, we're in a really good spot. We have a great culture of unity at our workplace or at this organization or ministry or church. And then really you're actually leaving people out. So I think Eugene Cho actually said this, and I heard him speak, but he was saying, the more diverse your culture, actually the more you're representing God's kingdom. And that really hit me, because it was like, whoa, it kind of caused me to like look around at, my workplace or my church and be like, is this the best representation of God's kingdom?
Yeah, because the pursuit of unity might look more like everything is the same, like a uniform. Like, we all have to be dressed the same way and act the same way, then we can get along. But maybe that true test of unity is, having that person wearing purple instead of black. Like, if you can coexist in a healthy way, maybe that's that good check mark of, okay, now we haven't become exclusive. We're actually achieving unity. Johnny?
The only thing that comes to mind, and I don't know if this fits in it or not, but it's, we always call ourselves something. We always feel like we have to put ourselves in some kind of box. And the thing that always is, I always hear people say, well, I'm a Christian, and it's because I'm a Christian. And so we put this Christianity box. And there are a lot of times, and me and everybody else, because we all have so many faults, that we say, oh, I'm a Christian, but then we have this sin, and then we're judging other people for it. And it becomes really messy and really ugly. And I remember somebody saying, just because you stand in a garage doesn't mean that you're a car. Just because you say that you're a Christian doesn't mean, if you're not walking and talking like it, doesn't make you then that Christian.
I like that analogy, because that's so true.
Yeah, that's good.
That is good. Okay, so we are covering lots of things today. This is a hard topic, because I think people generally have a desire of wanting to get along, and no one wants to be that person that looks like they are having some sort of social discourse and not able to get along. Maybe that's why we do gravitate to like-minded people, because then we feel like, oh yeah, no, we have unity. This is so much easier. We're not being stretched. But in the past year and a half, we've had a big, huge, thing to deal with the pandemic. And I know for a lot of provinces, there's been that conversation of we are in this together. It is that common denominator. No one can escape it. We're all human. We all have that equal opportunity of getting sick, but that was the case before. Anyone at any point can get sick, and we actually are always in this together. What examples have you seen, though, of that idea really starting to play out and people's perceptions maybe changing because of being in lockdown, craving people's attention, and realizing that, yeah, we really are in this together? Johnny, let's start with you.
Knew you were going to do that too.
It's your turn.
Because I'm like, where have I seen it? I'm like, there's probably really good examples. Hollie's going to say, Johnny, what do you think? And I'll be like, Care, thoughts?
Well, you work with your church. Have you seen it in your church maybe? Or come on now, you got kids in schools. Have you seen it with teachers and, students and parents?
I've lived in a bubble this last 18 months, Hollie. I've just been in my house. I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't traveled anywhere. So therefore, yeah, I guess I see it in my house all the time because we don't do it now. I think that there are a lot of places where we see it, or maybe it's going on and we're just not recognizing or realizing that there's a lot of charities in that have benefited lately where you can see people reaching out and doing those things. I know just in our church in general, one of the things that we found is the amount of people that have been laid off, the amount of loss of jobs, and where we're able to reach out to different people, different community members, and help out that way. And so I just think that there is a lot of great examples. And because you put me on the spot, I can't think of anything else.
No, but it's good though, Johnny. You're talking about people actually stepping up and doing their part because they believe we're all in this together. We all have a part to play. And I think that's a great example. So you did good, Johnny. You did good. I mean, I'm seeing it in my neighborhood. I'm seeing at the park. See a lot of families being respectful of others by keeping their distance. If you can just kind of read off of other people. I think we're getting better at that. Kind of gauging they don't want me to be too close, or you're in a grocery store and you're coming down the same aisle and maybe there was no arrow on the floor. So you're actually coming at each other. And I remember actually at the beginning of all this, you would be going the wrong way on an aisle and the other person would just be giving you the worst look ever. They were like, you're not following the arrows. It was like, you're like, I'm so sorry, back up. But nowadays I do feel like there's a little bit oh, excuse me. Oh, sorry. And people are trying to, press up against the aisle and make sure they're leaving their space. And so I do think that people are starting to consider other people. And I think that goes back to what we were saying before about being respectful. Even if you're in disagreement, you can still be respectful. And I think that brings unity. So I think whatever people's positions are, more and more, I think people are being considerate of what others are feeling and are believing.
I'd like to, maybe it's just me seeing the world with rose-colored glasses, but I kind of feel like people are maybe looking a little bit more for ways to be kind, because we're so confronted with literally, it's like either you believe black or you believe white. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of people who are sitting on the fence, and maybe that is actually the majority, but they're just the quietest. But I have heard of stories of people, even, for some of the shows that I've been able to be part of, I've gotten calls where somebody has surprised their neighbor who's battling COVID with flowers, or, people just going out to show that they care and that they notice them. And I think that's also a really good example of unity, when you can go outside of your own problems and extend love and kindness and build somebody else up.
Well, and I think too, at least I'm in Ontario and we just had our phase 1 of reopening just a couple of weeks ago. And I think already, people are being more gracious and more patient and more kind to restaurant servers and retail workers. I think they're understanding, hey, these people have maybe been out of work and a little rusty for a couple of months. Maybe they're new hires. These businesses are just hiring new people now. So let's just be kind and be patient. And I think I think we've been seeing that, and maybe it's because it's summer, everyone's in a good mood, so we're all wanting to be a little extra nice, and we're all outside finally. But I do definitely think I'm seeing a bit more than that. And I'm going to throw something out there. This is kind of I don't want to change the conversation or hijack it, but do you think that some of this, acceptance, kindness, respect, being aware of other people, do you think that also not just the pandemic, but it also is coming out of the year that we've had when it comes to some of the racial issues that have come up? I think, are people becoming more aware of just, we're different, but we can still love one another and be to get in it together, right?
Mm-hmm. I would say, I think, somehow they all play a role in each other's progression. And I know with just some of those conversations about race, it's really taking that stance of listening and learning depending on where you play in that particular picture. But I think if we can respect each other, love each other, listen, learn, that all helps to grow that and foster that atmosphere of unity and how do we live life better together. So I think it all plays a role, and hopefully we're not going to get a utopia world where everyone gets along. But maybe in your community, you can encourage something that will make people feel unified despite their differences. And I think you bring up a good point too. I mean, where do we go from here? We've had all those conversations about race, and we're seeing things being discussed about church and in communities and health. So people are needing to work together. We need to find unity and that kind of balance. So, it's July. Where do we go from here to continue to grow and foster unity?
Back in the day.
You. Oh,
Johnny, no. Yeah. Back in the day when I used to go to the gym, when I used to work out, I would get on the treadmill and I'd watch everybody lifting weights. And I'm like, man, they're so strong, man, that's great. And then I'd leave. And then the next day I'd come in and I'd do the treadmill and I'd like, man, those people are so jacked. They're so swole. I wish I was like that. The difference is that I never, ever got stronger because I never picked up the weight. If you're just willing to sit there and watch everybody else do it, you are never going to grow from it. So it's like that faith without works is dead. If you're not going to do something about it, it's cool to talk about it. Hey, it would be really good. I say to my kids all the time, it'd be really good if we were to buy a coffee for the person behind us at the coffee store. And they'd be like, yeah, Dad, that'd be a great idea. And then we just go and we drive. And I'm like, the next time we go around, I'm like, it'd be good, guys, if we used our $5 here and we bought a coffee for the lady behind us. Dad, that's a great idea. But if we never do it, we're never going to be able to grow from it. So that's the whole thing, Hollie, is it's important and we see it, but we got to do something about it. Saying and talking about it is one thing, doing it is another.
Yep. King of analogies over here. You had a couple already.
I don't want to say anything, but I brought my 2.
Care, what about you?
I mean, I would have just gone off of what you had recently said, Hollie, just about the whole fact of having conversation, listen to people, be more considerate, be aware, get curious about one another, experience new things. I think those are all the ways that we're going to start understanding, what, maybe I judged this person before for whatever reason. And we actually have a lot in common. And, maybe the language we use is different, or maybe, the prime issues that we vocalize might be different, but underneath, we really all want the same thing. It's just how we go about it might look different for different people. But I think if we listen and truly try to understand, and going back to that word, respect one another, I think having those conversations will just train us and open us up to realizing that there's no reason for us to separate each other just because we have some different views. So I think just taking that mentality and that approach, and then, like Johnny said, just do it. Do it.
Just do it. Yeah. I love the idea too of just being curious, like you were saying, and asking those questions. I like to remind myself that if somebody does something to me, I think there's probably a perfectly good reason, their reason, as to why they're doing this. And I was talking to some friends and they showed me a picture of a child, looked like he was in Costco or something, just on the ground, not having a good day, right? Like, oh my goodness, the sample line is far too long. I'm going to have a meltdown. And so we were talking about the image. We're like, oh man, like this kid's maybe in need of like some kind of being talked to or whatever the case is. But if that was a picture of a child who maybe just lost her mom, you know, and like if you don't know that backstory, you're going to respond very differently in a situation if you just take it for its face value at that moment and forget that there is a whole life coming up to that moment, a lifetime spent. And so it just was a really great perspective of we don't always know what's going on. We don't see the full picture. As we wrap things up, I am reminded of my junior high social studies class. It was a quote that always stayed with me, Voltaire. And he had said that, I do not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And so Voltaire says this, obviously, in a very different time than what we're living now. But I think that his words really do ring true when it comes to, I might not agree with you, but that's your perspective and kind of, you know, faith with actions. Like, I will defend that you have the right to say that. And I still love you as a person. So let's just move past our differences and get along and go play tag or something.
There's a reason that a statement like that has lasted so many centuries, you know, because it is true now and forever. And I think, you know, if we want to see that global impact, that like actual life-changing ripple effect unity, then that's all you can really do is just acknowledge that we're different and great. Let's do this together anyway.
Mm-hmm. Any final comments, guys?
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
You can't spell unity without you and I.
All right.
Good way to end it. I like it.
Perfect. Johnny Rocket, Care Baldwin, thank you so much for being a part of today's July Roundtable discussion. Pen drop.
It's fun.